We continue now at the top of Daf Chesam and Aleph and Meseches Makkos. This is Makkos Daf 8a. On the previous Amud, there was a Machlokas Tanoim in the Mishnah. How do we understand the pasuk when it says that somebody is chopping wood and then something goes flying and kills someone? That's a case of killing by mistake, and the person has to go to Golus. And the way that Rebbe understood was the pasuk was saying Vinishal. We understand it Yesh Eim Lemesores, the way that the pasuk is written, not the way that the pasuk is read. And so therefore, what the pasuk actually means to say is he's chopping wood, and then some of the wood from the tree it goes flying and hits somebody. That's the case of the pasuk, and that's the case where the person goes to Golus. And so essentially, the Gemara in the previous Amud was saying that according to Rebbe, Yesh Eim Lemesores, we follow the way that the words are written in the Torah. And so the Gemara now continues and asks, V'ha'amar Rav Yitzchak b'Rav Yosef Amar Rav Yochanan. But didn't Rav Yitzchak b'Rav Yosef say that Rav Yochanan said, Rebbe v'Rav Yehuda ben Roetz u'Beis Shammai v'Rav Shimon v'Rav Yekiva, Rebbe and Rav Yehuda ben Roetz and Beis Shammai and Rav Shimon and Rav Yekiva, kulhu svira lahu, they all hold Yesh Eim Lemikra, that actually the way we interpret the pasuk is the way it's read, and that goes exactly against what we said in the previous Amud, that Rebbe holds Yesh Eim Lemesores. And the Gemara continues and answers, Hainu deka'amar lahu v'od. That's why Rebbe, in the brisa that's brought in the previous Amud, he said v'od. He gave an additional reason as well. He said there's a gezerah shava that proves that we're talking about the wood flying off from the tree that the person is chopping. And the idea over there is that Rebbe was saying, if you hold Yesh Eim Lemesores, we can give that reason. And even if you don't hold Yesh Eim Lemesores v'od, we have another reason of the gezerah shava. And the Gemara continues, Amar Papa says, Man deshada pisa ladikla, if somebody throws a clod of earth at a palm tree, v'osar tamri v'ozal tamri v'kotel, and then the dates fall and they fall on someone and kill someone. So bana lemachlokas, the Rebbe v'Rabbanan, that's exactly the same machlokas as Rebbe and the Rabbanan. It's essentially like chopping wood and then something goes flying. That's the same basic case as we had above. And the Gemara says, Pshita, well, isn't that obvious? It's the same case. The Gemara says, no, Mao Detema, what might you have said, Kekoach Kocho Dami, that's like Koach Kocho. It's not considered one koach, it's actually a second step removed from the case of our Mishnah. Kamashim Alon, it's coming to teach that no, that's exactly the same as the case of our Mishnah. The Gemara says, Ela koach kocho l'Rebbe heichem ashkachas lo. So what is a case of koach kocho according to Rebbe? And the Gemara says to that, Kagon deshada pisa u'michya lagarma. The case would be, for example, let's say he throws a clod of earth and it hits a branch, v'azal garmu michya lechavsa, and then the branch goes and hits a cluster of dates, v'asar tamri, v'azal tamri v'kotel, and then the dates fall and they kill someone, so then you're adding an extra step of indirectness, so to speak. That's a case of koach kocho. And Rashi explains, Banu lemachlokas, this is the same as the machlokas. Dahainu dumya dumino eitzam espakeh. That's exactly like a situation when you're chopping wood, and then the wood from the tree goes flying and hits somebody. And the Gemara says, and the Gemara said, Ma'u detema, what might you have said? And Rashi explains, Hala Rebbe ke koach kocho dami. Maybe according to Rebbe, this is actually an extra step of indirectness of koach. Upater, and it would be pater. Why? Because maybe you would say, Sheharegev haya koach rishon. Maybe you would say the clod of earth is actually a first koach, because it's not like directly like an axe when he's still holding on to the axe and he strikes the wood. Here he's releasing the clod of earth. And then we would look at the dates falling as a second koach. Kamash Malon, it's coming to teach that Shaharegev Kagarzan, that the clod of earth he's throwing is identical to the axe. Vahatzmarim Kakesam Hanitas, and then the dates, they're exactly like the piece of wood that goes flying. Lagarmahu Eitz Hacharoyo Shatzamorim Tuluyan Etzlo. The Gemara then said, what's koach kocho? That's if you introduce a branch in between, that's the garma. Umichya Lakuvs, and then that hits a cluster of dates, who eshkol hatzmarim, again that's the cluster of dates, hamikubotzim yachad, which are gathered together. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Hazorek Evan l'Rishos Harabim, if somebody throws a stone to Rishos Harabim, if a harag and it kills, Hareza Gola, that person is going to go to Golos, he's going to go to exile. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Omer, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, Im mikashayot saso ha'evan miyodo, hotzi halo es rosho v'kibla, from when the time the person released the stone from his hand, the other person, he stuck his head out and he received, so to speak, the stone hit him, Hareza Potter, so in that situation, the person would be Potter. Zarek if he throws the stone to his courtyard and it kills, if the nizik, the person who got damaged, had permission to enter this person's courtyard, so then the person who threw the stone into his own courtyard, he would go to exile. And if not, then he would not be exiled. Shenemar, as it says in the pasuk, it says he comes to his friend in the forest, and we learn from that, just like the forest is a place where the nizik and the mazik are allowed to enter. Af kol rishus lenizik ulamazik likonis lasham. So too, when a person goes to golus, it has to be in a situation where it is a rishus that both the nizik and the mazik are able to enter. Yotza chotzer balabayis, that comes to exclude the chotzer, the balabayis, she'ein rishus lenizik likonis lasham. There, the nizik does not have permission to enter that area. And the Mishnah continues, Abba Shol, Omer Abba Shol says, Ma chatavas eitzim rishus. Just like the chopping of wood is rishus, af kol rishus, so too these situations of exile are when the person is engaged in something that is a rishus, that is not a mitzvah. Yotzo ha'av ha'makes beno, that would exclude if a father is striking his son, v'harav harodes talmido, or let's say the Rebbe is striking his student in order to educate, ushliach bezin, or the agent of the court who's supposed to strike someone when giving lashes. In those situations, those situations would be excluded from going to Golus. And the Gemara says, L'Rishus HaRabim, if the person threw the stone to Rishus HaRabim, to the public domain, so Mezidu, that should be considered on purpose. Why is that a situation where the person goes to Golus, that it should be considered Shogeg? And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak, Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak says, Besoser es koslo. The case over here is, the person is destroying his wall. The Gemara says, but still, if a person is destroying his wall, all these stones are going into the public domain, it's something that he needs to look out for. He was responsible for that. And the Gemara answers, Besoser es koslo balayla. We're talking where he's destroying the wall at night. But the Gemara continues, Balayla nami boile liyune. At night also the person should be careful what he's doing. And the Gemara answers, Besoser es koslo la'ashba. What he's doing is, he is destroying the wall into an area that is a garbage heap. The Gemara says, Hay ashba hechidami. Well, what exactly is the situation with this ashba? Ishchichi barabim, if it's a place where the public, if they're frequent over there. So again, posheyahu, the person is being negligent. And ilo shchichi barabim, if that's a place where people don't go, so anasu, so it's an accident. He shouldn't even go to Golus. It should be even less than a shogeg. And the Gemara continues and answers, Amar Papa. Papa says, Lo, no, tzricha, it's necessary. Elali ashba asui lifonus ba b'lai levein asui lifonus ba b'yom. It's an ashba where people, they generally will go there to defecate at night, but not during the day. V'iko de mikri v'yasa, but once in a while it will happen during the day as well. So poshe'el lo have, it's not negligence to ha'ina asui lifonus ba b'yom, because it's not a place that you use to defecate during the day in general. But ones nami lo have it, but it's also not considered an accident to ha'iko de mikri v'yasa, because there are people that every once in a while they will sit over there. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, and the Gemara says, Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Umatzah, the pasuk says Umatzah. We'll take a look at the full pasuk. The pasuk says, Vasher Yavo es Re'eu vayar lachto veitzim, a person is going into the forest to chop wood, V'nidcha yado v'garzon lichros ha'etz v'nashal ha'barzal mino eitz, and then the blade, it comes off of the handle, Umatzah es Re'eu, and it finds his friend, again, it strikes his friend in that fashion. And the Brisa says, it says, Umatzah prat lemamsi es atzmo, that excludes Mamsi Asatzma, which again is the case of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, we'll see in a moment. Mikan Omer Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, from here Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, if from after the stone left his hand, Hotzi Halo es Rosho, this person stuck out his head, V'kibla, and received it, so to speak, and he was struck in that fashion, Potter, then the person is Potter. That's what it means when it says Prat Lamamsi Asatzma, it excludes when the person who is struck, when he presents himself. And the Gemara continues, Lemeimer, does that mean to say, the matzah meikara mashma, that when we use the word matzah, it means meikara, it means from the beginning. And what the Gemara means to say by meikara is that the item, or in this case the person, was already there from the beginning. But the Gemara continues, Uramini, but we have the following contradiction, umatzah, the pasuk says umatzah, and the full context of that pasuk is v'ish ki lo yeh lo goel, if a person does not have a redeemer, v'hisiga yado umatzah kadei geulaso, and then he's able to find enough to redeem the property that he needs to redeem. And so the Brisa says, what does it mean umatzah? Prat lematzah, that excludes a case where it's already found, meaning to say, shelo yimchor barachok, he can't sell something, a piece of property that's far away, v'yigol b'karov, in order to redeem something that's closer, and b'ra v'yigol b'yafa, he can't sell something that's bad in order to redeem something that is nicer. And the point over here is that it's prat l'matzah, the fact that he already had it in his possession makes it problematic, because umatzah means that he was able to come into new funds, not funds that were already there. And so that seems to be exactly the opposite interpretation of the word umatzah. And the Gemara says, Amar Rava says, Hachamei yoni dekra v'hasamei yoni. It all depends on the context of the pasuk. Hasa mein yani dekra, there it's following the context of the pasuk. Umatza dumyo de vihisiga yado. The word umatza is similar to vihisiga yado. Ma hisiga yado mahashta. Just like the phrase hisiga yado means right now, he suddenly is able to afford it. Af matza nami mahashta. That's also what matza means. It means right now he found. And hach over here also mein yani dekra. It's from the context of the pasuk. Umatza dumya de yar. Umatza is similar to a forest. Ma yar midi de isei meikara. Just like the forest is something that was here there from before. Afu matzah nami midi de'isei meikara. So too the word umatzah is referring to something that was already there, or someone that was already there from before. And Rashi explains, umatzah mashma hushahu sham. The word umatzah is mashma that the person was already there. Umitzo neshiras neshla barzel, and then the blade found him. Prat lemamsi atzmo. It's to exclude when he presents himself. Acharechein. After that, hotzi halo es rosha. The person then sticks out his head minachalon from the window. V'kibal even b'metzcho, and then he receives, so to speak, the stone in his head. Umatzah prat lemotzah. And then when it comes to redemption, it says umatzah. That's to exclude if it's already found, meaning b'mocher steach uzasuksiv. This is talking about somebody who sells his ancestral field. V'hisiga yado matzah, and then he acquires the means prat lematzah, that excludes that he had the means found already. Im haisa geula zu mitsuya biyado kishamocher. At the time he sold the field, he had the ability to redeem. He had the access to those funds. Ein kovenes alokach lachzira lo lifados. Then we don't force the buyer to return it to him when he redeems it. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said hazorek eso Evan, one who throws a stone, and the Mishnah went on to bring abashol. Abashol again said machat tovas eitzim rishus, just like the chopping of wood is a rishus, and that excludes a situation of. And the Gemara says Amar le'ahume rabbanan l'Rava. One of the rabbanan said to Rava, mimaid mechat tovas eitzim rishus. How do we know that the chopping of wood that is mentioned in the pasuk in terms of somebody who kills by mistake and goes to golus, how do we know it's a rishus? Meaning, how do we know it's not involving a mitzvah? Dilma mechat tovas eitzim the sukkah. Maybe it's the chopping of wood in order to build a sukkah. Mechat tovas eitzim the ma'arocha, or maybe it's the chopping of the wood for the ma'arocha on the mizbeach, in terms of having a fire on the mizbeach. And nevertheless, the Torah says that the person should go to golus. Amar le, he said back to him, Kevon di matzah chotav lav mitzvah. Since if it would already be chopped, there's no mitzvah specifically to chop the wood. You just need to get the wood in order to eventually perform the mitzvah. So hashtanami lav mitzvah. So now also it's not really considered a mitzvah. It's not fundamentally a mitzvah, is essentially the answer of the Gemara. And the Gemara continues, Ravina asked Rava the following question from our Mishnah. It comes to exclude a father that's striking the son, or a Rebbe doing similarly to the Talmud, to the student, or an agent of the court. Those are all mitzvahs. Those are all excluded. Should they kill while they are striking, those are all going to be cases where there is no golus. And so the Gemara says, according to the logic above, lema, one should say, Kevon di'ilu gomer, since let's say the person's son is learned and doesn't need to be struck, so lav mitzvah, so then it wouldn't be a mitzvah. So hashtanami, lav mitzvah. Now also we should say it's not a mitzvah. In other words, it's not fundamentally a mitzvah. You're just doing it in order that the son should go on the proper path. But the Gemara continues and answers Hasam over there, afagav de gomer, even though the son is learning properly mitzvah, it is still a mitzvah to strike the son. D'chsiv, as it's written, Yaser bincha v'yanichecha v'yitein madanim l'nafshecha. It says in Mishlei that a person should give musar to his son. That is a good, that's a positive thing to do. And the Gemara continues, Hadar Amar Rava, but then Rava said a little different. Lav milsehi de'amri, it's nothing what I was saying before. Rather, the answer is as follows. V'asher yavo esrayehu bayar, the pasuk says, Asher yavo esrayehu bayar, he happens upon his friend, he comes upon his friend in the forest, and the implication of the word Asher is the iboy ayil, v'iboy lo ayil, that if he wanted, he could enter, and if he didn't want, he didn't have to enter. It's something that is a rishus. V'salka daitach mitzvah, and if it should enter your mind that it's a mitzvah, misagid lo ayil, do you think that he's not able to enter? He would have to go into the forest. It sounds like the way it's phrased in the pasuk, it's something that was a rishus, something that was voluntary. And the Gemara continues, Amalei Ravada bar Ava l'Rava, Ravada bar Ava said to Rava, Kol hecha d'chsev asher di'iboyhu. Do you think every single time it says the word asher, it means that only if the person wants to do it, that it's voluntary? Elameata, but according to that, v'ish asher yitma v'lo yischata. What about the pasuk about a person becoming tamei? We'll take a look at the full pasuk. The full pasuk says, v'ish asher yitma v'lo yischata. A person becomes impure, he doesn't purify himself. He's going to get kares kies mikdash Hashem timei, because he was metame the mikdash menidalo zorak olav tamehu. He didn't go through the purification process, so he is tamei. And it says over here asher. It sounds like he became tamei, but it wasn't something that he had to do. So you're going to say again in that pasuk, iboy mitzvah, iboy lo mitzvah, means if he wanted to, he could become tamei. If he didn't want to, he didn't have to become tamei. But there are scenarios not like that. Meis mitzvah de lo sagi de lo mitzvah. Are you going to say that if the person became tamei to a meis mitzvah, that's a dead body found on the road, he has to take care of it, he had to become tamei, that's a mitzvah? Hachanami de pater, you're going to say over there that he's pater in the situation of mikdash Hashem timei? Of course you wouldn't say that. And the Gemara continues and answers, Shani Hasam, it's different over there. Diyamar Kra, because the pasuk says, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Ches Amud Beis.